Unidos para Centroamérica. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Central American Voices podcast. Today, I am with Tanya, an amazing Nicaraguan artist. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited too. I'm grateful to all the team for bringing me in. Super excited.
Yeah, just shout out to Liz for making the connection. I am so excited.
And Delilah, our professor, she
Yes.
made it happen basically.
Yes. But first, let's start with a little bit of let's go back to home. So, tell me how it was growing up in Masaya, Nicaragua for you. And yeah, tell me a little bit how it was growing up for you over there.
I was born in Masaya, Nicaragua. I lived with my maternal family in a intergenerational household. So it was like my grandpa, my grandma, my mom, and my sister, and it was like amazing. I honestly like looking back at my childhood in Nicaragua. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just like living in Nicaragua. I feel like you live in community, and I I literally like my neighbors were also my family members, and so like I could go to my like the house next door and hang out with my cousins or like go with my aunt, and my doctor lived like 2 houses down, so like it was very community based, and I think like that is really foundational to who I am as a person now. Like family means everything to me, and I also grew up like I think Masaya is like a really small town, even though it's urban. So I don't know. I was very like kind of just like was like in my house in school, and I didn't really do like as many activities in Nicaragua, but like I would say like I got to explore different. I don't know, just like do different things where it's like, like there's so much in my town where it's like a lot of music. Like Masaya is like this like very cultural and traditional like town with like a lot of music and a lot of traditions, like a lot of traditions that are indigenous. So I grew up like around a lot of art, I would say. Like there's a lot of artesanias. And so like people that make masks, and those masks are used in different dances, and so I grew up seeing all that, and I think that is definitely foundational to me now.
Yeah, and then how? At what age do you migrate here to the United States?
So I migrated here when I was 8, and my whole side of like my paternal family lives out here. So it was basically this like rupture from not only like my home country but also my maternal family. So it's like I don't know. It's like I also feel like I talk a lot about that in my artwork.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very interested because you're 8. You're technically starting to learn, explore like life, right? But I feel like even in your art, Nicaragua and Masai is very present.
Yeah.
So like, for example, now that you move here and you relate with what Masaya is, which is the foundation of not only who you are as a person, but also like in your art, how do you were able to navigate at a very young age of even like the experience or meaning of home and belonging.
Yeah. Well, I also I lived here when I came. Like I was here maybe 3 or 4 years, and then I went back to Nicaragua and did middle school there, and then I came back when I was 16. And so like I do have like a lot of like just a lot of memories there, not only from my childhood but also from like being 12 or 13 and living there. And I'm sorry, what was the question?
Like the about home and belonging, how like so now like you move back for a very small period of time and then you come back. So you were always connected, but how was for you kind of like learning what home belonging is within those your formation years, I will say.
Yeah. Well, I think it is a lot to do with like just my family just being very nurturing, and I think growing up like in an intergenerational home, like my my grandma was like my caretaker, and my mom was like, you know, the person that went out and worked. And so like, and also my grandpa, like he raised me, like he taught me how to ride a bike. And he like, you know, he actually built our house where we lived. And my grandma like cooked our lunches. And I think like all of that like is like what home means to me. Like all that, I know what love and care is like tied back to like those memories and like belonging to something that feels safe to me. So yeah, like I don't know. That's what home means.
Yeah.
To me, basically.
And then how throughout those years, how did you were able to find or inspiration? What inspired you to pursue art? Because I feel like, I mean, you kind of talk a little bit of Masaya being very like artistic. I don't remember right. Is it Masaya close to the lake, right?
Yeah.
Close to the lake. Okay, because I do
La
remember.
Laguna de Apoyo.
Yeah, I think that's where they have these little small shops where you go and shop. A lot of artisans.
Oh, like Catalina? Is it Catarina?
I
Is that
don't
what you're
know.
talking?
I was very young when I went over there. I don't know remember, but I do remember every time visiting Masaya was there's this. If I can describe, it was like close to a lake, and there was like all the streets full of like artisans, and it was like everything you can find that you can like full of art. So that's all I remember.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's very close or that was far.
I mean, yeah, I think I know what you're. I think
Okay.
it's like Catarina, but yeah, there's always just like a lot of crafts that are made at artesanias. I don't like to call. I feel like it's crafts, artisanal.
Artisan. Yeah, artisan.
Artisanal
Yeah.
goods. Yeah, that are like made with a lot of care and love.
Care and love.
Are like traditions that are passed down from generation to generation, very rooted in like our culture of like dancing and music. And like there's this kind of like this tradition or holiday during the Halloween times, which people, you could kind of associate it with Halloween, but it's called Los Avisotes, and it only happens in Masaya at the end of October. And it's kind of like a lot of our folklore and a lot of just like stories of like kind of like El Padre Sin Cabeza, like you know, the father without a head, or just like very scary things that you like legends, right?
Como las
Yeah,
leyendas, como las leyendas.
yeah, and like the spirits are out, so people dress up and they like dance, and there's like chicheros, like really loud music and drums, and people like are like dancing all around town. It's like my favorite thing to do. Like on every October, like I wish I could go travel and like see it. Like I haven't been there since I was a teen, but like just like things that like those type of traditions that happen in like town. But I think also like my art like is very rooted in like my paternal family as well. Like my uh great uncle or grand uncle. He was actually an artist in Nicaragua. His name was Noel Flores, and I like kind of found out about him later out in life. But he did a lot of sculptures and a lot of painting, and some of his sculptures are actually like around the roundabouts in Managua. So like I think I have like it's kind of like something that was also like passed down. Like my father also was an artist, even though I don't have a good connection with him. I think I have to admit that like I that my art like I know what an artist is because of like that being passed down to me in a way.
Yeah, so those experiences and like connection with your family is kind of what like, oh, I want to focus on this type of art.
Yeah, well, also like just like the history and like because my art is very rooted in like historical legacies. I grew up with my family talking about a lot about the Civil War and a lot about like the trauma that they went through, but not in a way that felt traumatic, but just like a way that was like, this is what happened during this time, this is what we had to go through. And just like learning about that, it's like I felt like I needed to have a voice to talk about these issues, to talk about this like pain and trauma, and like have an outlet to create. And so like I think all this experiences just like created who I am, and also like my, although like I think the Sandinismo, the name Sandinismo is very tainted. My family was also like it's very socialist, so like I kind of so like just growing up learning about this different power dynamics have influenced my work and my understanding of the world and how I want to approach this subject matters. Yeah.
Okay, I love that because I feel like, and I always say in Central America that we are very political, no matter where we are. Like I always say, like how can we not be if our whole experience is right? And I love that coming from a town that is so colorful, full of history, full of so many tradition and art, and your family that has history also with art, like you get to explore those topics with art and assess a question or assess like an experience that maybe sometimes have, I would say normalized, but forgotten, right? If I know that in a piece that you talk about Somoza period, which is I think not a lot of people, which from now, right, talk about, but I know older generations do and do remember what was like, and then and it's just the intersectionality of lived experiences that in our home countries to like also migrations and like how the is also explored within your own body and your own trauma. I think that's kind of like what I get about your like art, that it's like also very expressive within you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's this connection to my body and my land. Like there's this saying, que dice, mi cuerpo es mi primer territorio. Saying comes from feministas in Latin America, specifically indigenous women and campesinas and ecofeministas. And it's this quote that basically gives like ownership and like acknowledges bodily autonomy, but also links our body or our physical bodies to our personal bodies to our physical land. And I think our bodies carry these memories, they carry these traumas that are passed down from generation to generation. They're transgenerational. And um, it also like acknowledges like the harm that our communities have faced by like this um, violent systems. And I think like that acknowledgement is like something that I like could relate to, and that I feel like I could make work both about like my own experiences in my own body as like someone who's like a survivor of like sexual violence per se, and also like seeing the parallels between like that violence that has happened upon our like countries like in Central America, the civil wars, US backed dictatorships, oppression and exploitation of our labor, all of that, they're all intertwined. And I feel like I have like this tool that I can use to like just showcase these realities, but also to like give me power, to reclaim power, to give me agency.
Yeah.
And to be able to like talk about these things in a way that raises awareness, but also gives me some kind of like outlet, and it's that outlet feels very liberating to me.
Yeah, I love that. That is, you know, I think recently I learned like, not recently, but a couple of times. of how trauma gets passed through generations and generations. That even to this day, we still have the trauma that it was during colonization. And I think that I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, because there was something that said like it affects your DNA and the whole aspect. But then, how do we reclaim that part? And even like as a body, like um, as survivors who sometimes they just want to reclaim something, and reclaim their own, honor their own bodies, their own stories, and it's the same way we also see how do we reclaim this story of our own countries that has been erased or has been so much violence within the same oppressions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this like we have this historical legacies, and we have to preserve that collective memory. It can't be erased. It can't be forgotten, because if it lives under this shadow, like in the dark, we'll never set ourselves free. Like we'll never like understand our realities. And I think that like this histories, obviously they still affect us. Like there's still um so much instability in Central America because of this like past. And so how can we not discuss that? How can we forget about it? Yeah, like we need to like have moments where we experience joy, where we can go dance, where we can celebrate our cultures, where we can like unite under like our flags, which I love that we all have like blue and white flags, but we can also like talk about this stuff so that like still affect us. And I know a lot of people like don't love to talk about those issues, but I grew up in a household where like they would talk about it, and my grandmother never shied away from any of that. And even on July 19th, which is like the day of where the Sandinistas overthrew Somoza, it like we still celebrate that every year, like so every like not April. Did I say April? July 19th. Every July 19th, like people go out in the streets and celebrate. And I think those moments were moments where like my family would like talk about that, and they would also just laugh about things that happen. Like there's a story my grandma told me where like they had to leave our home because like the military was like kind of using it as like a operation, like a base. And so like, and they were near the area, so they all had to leave really far. But she told me that she like hit this iron like behind somewhere, and when the Sandinistas won and they came back home, like everything was destroyed, but like that iron was still there. And I think that's like really like it's like a moment of joy, like like it's like funny to think about that, like that still was there, and that like she got to keep like an iron, like and then just like yeah, like I think it's important to discuss that. And I think like I just want to be able to raise awareness of um these legacies.
Yeah, I think I honestly also think that it's very important to talk about this issue because a lot of people don't want to talk, and sometimes I understand them, right? Of like yes, we all want to celebrate, we want to have music or food, or flags and everything, but also like what I always think like what has made the country what it is. Why do we think we're here? Or why do we think some people from rural towns migrate to the city? Why some people there can no longer visit back, or and for example in Nicaragua, I know there are a lot of people who cannot go back. Or why cannot show something like. I think it is important to talk about the same way we celebrate it, because the only way that we can be aware and to make it changes if we know about it. And some people just decide to just don't talk about it because either they don't know, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But all this because they just don't. they'd rather just ignore. And I also think that that can be a coping mechanism for
Yeah,
those, and that is
definitely.
completely
It's
understandable.
valid.
It's valid,
Yeah.
you know, like no one wants to talk about
Mhm.
something that was very like traumatic for you,
Yeah.
you know, which that's completely valid. But for I always say like for us that sometime like, you know, for example in Honduras, like I don't recall no war other than the 100 hours of war that was within El Salvador. But we didn't have a civil war the same way Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua had. But I do what's it called? I do recognize that effect of U.S. imperialism in Honduras, how it led to have contras in the borders, right? And how like that allowance of having someone else to come into our country to put a base, to fund our military, to protect certain borders of what like you're fighting against your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And like even having like refugees camp for those who were fleeing El Salvador, which honestly like I have read the stories that like so many things of like bad happened there. And it's like, bro, you're doing that to your brothers and sisters instead of opening the camps to be welcoming. There's some of the history of like you just wanted to expel them there. It's like just welcome your brothers. Like they're fleeing like a war or X, Y, and Z. But I also like I recognize that too as that there is a sense of quote unquote privilege of not having a civil war inside, but also recognizing that the reason why we don't have it is because there was a whole U.S. imperialist, the whole person funding little thing,
Yeah.
like you know.
Well,
That,
there was also like the wasn't there a coup in Honduras?
yeah, there was a coup in
2009?
2009. I was
Yeah.
actually over there when
Oh
that
wow.
happened.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but even within the coup, which it's crazy to I when I see the coup is like it was not to an extent of like a civil war, right? But also like how it was U.S. funded, of course, because we cannot take them out as much as we want to.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. But also, I also think that for me, I personally say that that is something that changed my life. I think the reason why I started learning more about Central America, mostly from Honduras first, was because of the coup. And I remember that day like it was yesterday what everything happened, but also because in my household I have so many views. Like I have more conservative views, I have like more socialist views, you know, more military views for my dad, like more capitalistic views, and that was the day that everybody had to say, you know what I mean? And we were going at it, but not like in a bad way. Like we were all listening to each other, understanding certain points, but you know, they're also putting their own debate. Like, well, I believe this, you know.
Yeah.
But also from the coup, I think it became a whole pivotal time of like then 10 years of like dictatorship that it like just because it's from the right doesn't mean that it's not dictatorship, right? And what I call narco dictador, right? Because of years of like involvement of drug dealing and things like that. And then like so it's like even though we didn't have in Korea style like if a war, a lot of people don't recognize how much that coup affected
Yeah.
that and that is in recent years. Of course, when we're talking about the civil wars in Central America, that's like the 80s, and that's our parents. But and for me, in 2009, it was like I was a child, I was 12.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like the U.S. like is still meddling in Latin America. I mean, like even right now, like they're they're fighting with Venezuela and like yeah, whatever. Like I don't know. Like that's just not like we don't want wars to happen in our countries, and I think like despite like Venezuela leaving in that dictatorship, like the U.S. shouldn't be involved because then like they don't want us here, but they created the conditions that make us migrate out here, and so like it's not fair. It's like
It's not fair.
it's an injustice, and I think like also like I think a lot about why I'm here. Like even though I came here as a child, and I feel like very privileged because I came here like with my visa and like my father had U.S. citizenship, but like my great grandma migrated to the my grandma migrated to the U.S. from my paternal side of the family because like the Sandinistas were recruited young boys into like the military so that they could fight the contras. And so like my grandma fled because she had like 3 young boys that could have been, you know, recruited. And so like that's literally the reason why I'm here. And I think about that a lot, and I think about like, do I really want to be here? Like sometimes I wish I could just be in Nicaragua, but also like it's not a country where I could actually have like this opportunities that I do here. And it's because it's all tied back to like the US meddling there, and the violence and the oppressions and like exploitation. And so it's like, yeah, it's like all like, it makes me, you know, it makes me rage. You know?
I feel you. I feel like I have this conversation with my mom all the time too. It's like, why are they, you know, because everything has an effect. And I often think of media, right? The way we get represented in media has an effect on policy. Like I don't understand why, for example, international countries can have policies make for a certain, like, another country, like that's not your country. But then when someone migrate to find a better life or something, then you get, oh, like, don't come here. And it's like, let's just start first with your base. But you know, or even like what happened recently in Honduras too, which I know, like, if we talk back, like the first was the Mitch, like Hurricane Mitch, that displaced so many Nicaraguans and Hondurans. And then like recently, like 2 hurricanes category 5 at Tayota, like that they honestly displaced over 2 million Hondurans. And so it's like, you destabilize so much our countries that when we have natural resources, we cannot go, and you don't even believe on natural disaster refugees. Like, it's just, you know.
Yes, like they're getting rid of the programs that help people migrate to the US with, you know, like legally, you know. And like, okay, but what do you expect us to do, like, when you've literally destabilized our economies and our countries? Like, it's just messed up, really.
I mean, we can have a whole probably day talking about
literally
about what they do. Honduras Kitchen has always been a place that has felt like home, either to celebrate birthdays, graduation, celebration, or just a place where I can take my friend and introduce them to my culture. So now with 2 locations, one in Huntington Park and Long Beach, I can now order food directly to their website and get delivered to me. You can now order at hkhonduraskitchen.com to get the best prices on your favorite Honduran dishes. When you're drinking a cola champagne, or eating your favorite Central American snack, you're tasting more than food. You're tasting memory and a piece of home here. So Bravo Food is more than a brand. It's a taste of who we are. I really wanted to talk about a couple pieces that you have. I know that you have that, so please don't mind me. I will be clicking these links. I think one that I wanted to talk, which I think is, I mean, kind of what we're talking about, was La Cima del Cerro Coyetepe, which deals with a lot of trauma resistance and legacy on dictatorship and imprisonment. Imprisonment. So, like, can you, like, describe a little bit of, like, this piece? I know it holds a lot of layers of, like, violence, but also resistance. And, like, it's kind of like also very emotional. Can you, like, talk us about specifically that piece that I'm very fascinated about?
So El Coyotepe, I was actually talking about this earlier, so it's funny. So La Cima del Cerro Coyotepe is this piece about this fortress called El Coyotepe that's a 5-minute drive from my house, and it's up this hill. And in this fortress, it was built sometime in the 1800s, but during the Somoza dictatorship, it was used as a prison for political prisoners, and they would torture them. It's like actually like brutal what they did down there. And you can go now on a tour, and they tell you all the, you know, everything that they did. Like they would like make people go blind from keeping them down in this basement, and then on purpose they would like take them up like after having them down there for like months and or years, and because of the light being so strong they would go blind, or the guards would like piss on people, or like they also had a electric chair. So like there's just like so much violence that happens there because I grew up next to this place. Like I could see it like if I'm going to like Managua, like it's towards that direction, the capital of Managua. So you could always see it, and I think like it's interesting because like now that fortress has been reclaimed and it's like a historical site, but also people like they go up this hill to exercise and go on hikes up there, and I think that's really cool that you're able to like, you know, use this like place that was now a death trap, basically, like a, you know, like a place of death, and now it's like this place of like um you know, like exercising, like trying to be healthy. And like my grandma actually, like she goes on hikes up there. She's like 80 years old, and like I recently went to Nicaragua like in May, and I would wake up at 5 a.m. to go walking up there with her. And I think like also like I just like hearing the like history behind that place and like being so close to that place, like I wanted to make a piece that talked about that like violence, and like I think I talk about it almost as like it's like this ritual that happened, like this violence for like was like prominent in Nicaragua, and like how like we like can subvert that now. And that piece, like I really love it because it's actually a photo etching, and I printed it on like this piece of like it's like metal plate, and you like burn it on um with like this like chemicals, and then you like add ink to it, and it's like a really long process where you have to like make sure the ink is in the spots that you want them to be. And so like it teaches you a lot of patience, and I think like it's like was like a moment of reflection for me, and like just like trying to understand this like legacies and trying to bring them to light, and trying to like see how I can like reclaim that story. And yeah, so that's
even
what
in the
that
process of the
yeah
patient,
yeah
you know.
yeah
That's pretty
definitely.
cool. I'm like I have so many that I want to talk about. I think also that I'm really, which I think it kind of ties down to of la semana de Rocoche, es el derecho de vivir en paz, which is kind of like a protest mourning and a collective action. That would I have it in my looks like that. But this piece kind of echoes the call of dignity of life. Can you talk about a little bit of that? Because I feel like you would accept quite, but it's just a memory of like all this violence and things like that. And now, you know, people will go to have hikes, and it's now like a beautiful thing, but the very dark history, right? But also our communities and us deserve a dignity of life too. So can you talk us a little bit
Yeah.
of that too, of the
So,
piece?
El Derecho de Vivir en Paz, it's the story of my grandmother. So, like I said, I grew up hearing her stories. She was never afraid to, like, tell me anything. She's an open book. And so I wanted to, like, have something that felt tangible, in which I could use her story to, like, just raise awareness. And also because, like, every trip that I go to Nicaragua, I like try to take photographs of my family and my grandma around our home, and like when we go out and do stuff, like I'm always like with my camera, just like think taking photos that feel very mundane at times. And I also would take footage. So I had this moment during 2020 where like I couldn't really, like, I was like, okay, well, I have all this footage and I have all these photos. How could I create something from this that feels like I'm honoring her? And so like I interviewed her and I put this together, and I think like I kind of had some questions for her, but I think like because she has so much knowledge and wisdom that it kind of guided where this conversation or the video went. And it does talk about dignity because, well, like her story, she like um, grew up very poor, and like during the Somoza dictatorship, while they lavished in their riches, like most of the population was poor and illiterate. So my grandma was very poor. Like they didn't really have clothes. They had food because they lived in a farm. So you know they were self-sustainable in that sense. But she also didn't go to school. I think she might have gone to up to third grade. So she like didn't really know how to read. And I think her experiencing the dictatorship and then the civil war, and then when the Sandinistas took over, you know, they implemented programs like the literacy campaign, and she learned to write, and I think that gave her a lot of power. And also just like that also made her realize like, you know, like this power structures, this dynamics of like you know, capitalism and class and all this stuff. Like I think she learned that from her own lived experiences. And so like yeah, like I think that she talks about her life, but also like she talks about how awful it is to experience war. No one wants to live through that. No one wants to experience this violence. Like everyone, you know, we like she talks about how we should be able to have dialogue, how we should have conversations, and like you know, like peace is like something everyone wants. Like we all should be able to live a life with dignity. And so I think like after hearing that, there's this song by Victor Jara, El Derecho de Vivir en Paz, Chilean composer and musician. And I think that was like the perfect title for this, because that's literally what she talks about, like the right to live in peace, and the right to have all your basic needs met, and the right for autonomy, and the right to just be yourself and express yourself, and not be in fear of like someone coming into your house and
kicking you out
or bombing you, because that's what happened during the dictatorship. So like just yeah, like that's what that piece is about. Yeah.
And something so simple, just living in peace.
Yeah, just like,
But like people, like you know, the system makes it so complicated, and the war makes it. I mean,
yeah.
like no one wants to be like live war. I feel like it's so beautiful that you documented your grandma in something that is very like you know like any everything, because that's what we want, like just be simple, just be able to get our basics met, but with a context of like what what did it have to lead to this, right? Of so you had to probably endure a lot of the dictatorship, the war, and everything in order to feel at least some sense, maybe hopefully now or not, of living in peace.
Yeah. I think she's definitely like found that peace, and I don't know how, like I look at her with so much love, because she's this ray of sunshine. She's like the most happiest person, most warming person, and it's hard to believe that she experienced all of this, and that she somehow healed, and that didn't turn her into like, I don't know, like someone that is bitter, or someone that like is full of hate and rage.
Yeah.
Like I think she was able to transform that into something that is, you know, transform herself to someone who's loving and caring, and like I learned so much from her, and she's like my inspiration.
Oh,
So like
that's
I
so
definitely
cute.
wanted to document her.
Yeah, that's something so beautiful, because you know you're gonna. I mean, that piece will live forever too, but also like it's something that you can always go back, right? And like such an inspiration. I really wanted to talk about the dialogue between the diaspora and local movements, especially with April 19th. Like you know, how do you like for this piece? I think when I saw it, it's crazy because you're interviewing one of my closest friends, and I have two of my closest friends are Nicaraguans. And when April 19 happened, like I felt like I lived it with them. Like I saw her fears. I saw like if you know when with your friends you kind of feel what they're feeling. So yeah, so I wanted to talk more about like the April 19 and also like the diaspora and the local movements and how what does it mean, right? Because you know, for me also as a Honduran and the diaspora and as an immigrant, sometimes I see my country, I'm like, there's so many things that I cannot do from here, but I can do as well. So like yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the April 19th.
Yeah,
piece.
so the April 19th piece is about the uprising that happened in 2018 in Nicaragua against Daniel Ortega. And I think that was a shocker for everyone that lived it from the outside. So everyone that was out here, like, looking at, through video footage of what was happening, we were all, like, inconsolable. Like, we just, like, we felt so, just, impotente, you know?
Impotente,
yeah. Impotent? Yeah. Like, we couldn't do anything. We just watched from afar. And, like, I personally, like, my mom and my grandma still live in Nicaragua. So, like, and that was also happening in Masaya. And, like, you know, like, buildings were being burned down. You know, like the police was shooting at people, and it was just very painful to watch. And so I feel like during that time, I was seeking like people that, you know, like were experiencing that as well. Like I feel like we all needed to be in community to process the pain, even though like we didn't experience it from living there. We like watched it and it was just as painful. And so I think that Anais has always been so outspoken, and so like I like reached out and we did like created this basically short documentary basically about what it was like to see to live that, and like also just to raise awareness of what was happening down there. Because like there I feel like there wasn't a lot of, I think if you're Nicaraguan, you knew what was happening, but I don't think other people outside of that knew. And so like I think we kind of wanted to raise awareness, and she was just like really like this force of you know like just out like being outraged and just like speaking about
because I remember her when she was in, I think outside of season. I think that was when she put a SOS Nicaragua, I think it was the hashtag. And I think even seeing your piece was like I kind of like remember me back of seeing her and showing me videos, and it's like you said, like uno se siente impotente, like you're seeing everything that's happening, but for some reason you feel like you cannot do anything as much as like you want to do everything. You know, and what is also the feeling, but also like you feel for your family, you feel for your peers, and then after that day, there's been so many people that have not been able to go back. You know, and what does that look like? And I think, you know, like I mentioned before we record this, Nicaragua has been that one country I visited outside of Honduras the most, which I always call it my second home because I visited so many times. And then, and you know, like I said, two of my closest friends have been Nicaraguans, and then it's like, I don't know, like it felt like wow, like I don't know, like sadness. I think, right, but also like what does it mean? Like what support does my Nicaraguan peers need? But at the same time, like I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? But I do remember from Anais that she was like, it feels that I am screaming and no one is listening. And I feel like a lot of times it feels that way. Not only for things that, again, here, for immigrant rights, Central American experiences, Palestine, everything. I feel like you scream and it's like there's not even echo. Like, it feels
Yeah.
like no one hears you.
Yeah.
And it's becomes so frustrated because you want to do everything, but sometimes you feel that your hands are tied, that you
Yeah.
can't do anything, you know?
You definitely feel
Mhm.
powerless. And
Mhm.
I mean, it really isn't like we could raise awareness, but we don't have like the power to make it end.
Mhm.
And that's why it feels so like impotente, like
Yeah.
so you feel so powerless, and no matter how much you scream, like it's very little what you can
Mhm.
really do besides like raise awareness, like raise funds to like help out people.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, I think in a way we do have privilege of not having to have experienced that, so like we're able
Mhm.
to like talk about this, while like people that were there probably couldn't really talk
Mhm.
about it. So like we could like
Yeah.
give a voice to
Voice.
to like the issue, and feel safe. And then like even to me it's like a little bit scary talking about it, because I'm like,
Mhm.
what if they don't let me back in? But I feel like more safe because I'm like, I'm not really like, I wasn't there. And
Yeah.
I've been a few times. I actually went right after, like in
Mhm.
August 2018, right after they took like the trenches down.
Okay.
And it was crazy seeing Masaya, like buildings burned down, places that I knew, like totally different. And so like I think yeah, like it was scary at the moment, but now there's still a lot happening, but I went in May, and I didn't feel like, like it feels like people are like kind of back to daily life in some many ways. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's at least good to hear.
Yeah.
But I know there's been some people that have not been able to go back, which is
Yeah,
still very
definitely.
sad.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I
is
know
sad.
Miss Universe was not able to be back. I also
Yeah.
know people that have been volunteers here on the podcast too, that
Yeah.
they're migrated to Spain, or people
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sometimes when I hear them, it's like, damn, like, and I also feel the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
people don't know this. Why people don't understand
No,
Nicaragua too,
definitely. I think like even within my family, a lot of people have migrated, like from my maternal family, which I think it's like unreal to me, like because I never imagined them here. Like some of my uncles like migrated to like Ohio, and then even my sister, she migrated to Spain. So yeah, it is like it had so much like this domino effect, and like it has affected like Nicaragua so much different now when you go back and see it.
Before we go, I want to talk about One Piece. I know my producer over there is like looking at me like, oh my god. But I really love this piece because, yo creo que voy a sonar como una radio repetitiva aquí in the podcast because I talk about this. But I really like identidad. I think I'm gonna add those photos for you to see. But I really like all the photos that I feel it represents a very like Central American identity, but that side that a lot of people don't want to talk. Like what we were saying, like we don't. A lot of people don't want to talk about the influence of bananas in our country, but everybody wants to eat it. You know, about the art, about the Americanization of it. Even I don't know cómo es que se llama esto.
Mortero.
El mortero.
Yeah.
And then even like the items and like even this like the map. I think it's when I saw it, I was like, I think I for a very long time like was just looking at all the images and I was just like, wow, like I was just like, oh, I can feel like years and years of his history, of pain, of also, but like what has built our identity, what has destroyed it, what have or migration, what could like I was just like I can sense all these images. So I wanted to talk about what inspired you to create that piece because you're using your own body, and I know we talk about like your own body using it as a form of art, to showcase art too, but also like yeah, kind of like what was the inspiration behind it, what made you make that piece.
So, Identidad Subversiva is the title for like the series of images that are in that piece, that are part of the series, and they all kind of deal with just like like the history and like the legacies of like Central America, not just Nicaragua, but I wanted to explore like what it means to be like a Central American, and like um how like we're often misrepresented, or how we have little to no representation. And so I think again, because I draw from all this like lived experiences from my grandmother, from my mother, from like the the lessons I learned about like Sandinismo, and like kind of like seeing the violence and injustices in my country, and in Central America, and just like Latin America itself. I think like it wasn't until maybe like when I was 18 or around college that I learned this political framework in which I could understand imperialism and capitalism. And because I was so like adamant that I wanted to be a photographer, that I wanted to make art, but I also wanted it to be like conscious and to raise awareness. And I was very drawn to the history of Latin America, and I wanted to understand that history. I decided in college to minor in Latin American studies. So like reading all this like history, like I think like I wanted to like put like pen into paper and like just have something tangible where I could express what I was feeling, like this rage that I had within me, but there's also this like deep care for my people and my community, and like this deep want and desire to like share our history, share our narratives, and to like um just preserve our collective memory. I think like that project kind of just evolved from that. And it was funny because like those pieces were actually, me and Kiara had a duo show together.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Kiara Machado. We had a duo show, and I showed those pieces, and she also had these pieces that like kind of talked back and forth with each other, and it worked so well. But I think we kind of were trying to like question and also like come up with how we can represent Central America, and that's kind of where this project was born from.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Honestly, I mean, all your pieces are amazing, but I feel like that one to me, I was like, you know, it's like whoa. Like I feel like, and it's true. Like to me, I also correlate a lot of things that happened until I got to college. I was like, why do I have to get to college to understand more my own identity?
Yeah.
You know, but time is almost to the end. You know, sadly. But I wanted to ask too, how can people support you? First, where they can find you, and also, do you have any upcoming shows or any upcoming projects that you want them to support you?
Yeah, well, if you want to support me, you can follow me at Tanya underscore la underscore Guerrera on Instagram, and my website is Tanya Flores Hodgson. Right now, I had a period in time where like I didn't know what I wanted to make with my art, and I just felt kind of lost. And so for I think several years I wasn't making anything, and I finally had some fuel, some fire, and like I think my work has kind of shifted in a way to like I'm kind of just exploring like longing and like this nostalgia for like like and memory for like my country and my family. And so like my work has kind of like become that right now. So like I'm trying to use old photographs and like still my body, because I think it's like just this crucial element that in my body of work. And I think that right now I'm just kind of exploring and trying to build like series of works that I can potentially show later. Right now I don't really have any shows lined up, but if I do, I'll post them on my Instagram.
We'll share it.
Yeah.
No, but thank you so much, Tanya, for being here. Honestly, it was amazing to talk. I know we could have continued talking. But no, but it was amazing to talk to you. So everybody go support Tanya, and we talk to you in the next episode.
care.